Time zone appropriate greeting to you. I'd like to welcome you to another community spotlight and introduce someone who's been called the Michelangelo of board building, a man whose blood group is 30k positive, the high tech priest of the 30k channel, David Brains. Welcome.
G'day, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really lovely. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time. This hobby section, community spotlight section, we've got two sets of questions, A and B, 1 and 2. Section A is what I've asked everyone else, and section B is more aimed towards yourself and the content, well, the amazing content that you produce.
That's very kind, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay. How did you get into the hobby of tabletop wargaming?
Oh man, I mean, I think with any person in this hobby that's been in it a while, it starts when we were at school pretty much. It started with Epic. I went into my local games workshop in Peterborough with a friend, and I brought a box of Space Marines and Orcs as well. My friend of mine brought some Eldar, and it just started off with Epic, and then that kind of built up into I was going to say ADEPTUS TITANICUS, but it wasn't ADEPTUS TITANICUS. It was TITANICUS Legions. I can't remember what the name of it was, but the one where you got the Imperator Titan and the two Orc Gargants. Can't remember what it was called. TITANICUS, that's what it was called. And then it kind of just built from there. Really got a few 40k units, and I was big on Imperial Guard. I loved Imperial Guard, and then it kind of built into a really big Necron army, which was great, and that kind of saw me through 3, 4, 5 years of gaming, and then when I moved back to the UK, I got into a bit of Warhammer. Which I've still got actually. It's still painted, but I've never played a single game. It's all square bases, ready to go. But then Forge World started releasing the Mechanicum models, and then it's so pretty much since 2012, it's been Mechanicum ever since really. So that's a long time, isn't it? Yeah. Huge time.
What type of hobbyist are you? A painter, collector, gamer, or a bit of a mix?
It's hard to answer. I think I'm a bit of right now. I'm a bit of everything really. But I think when I started, I was definitely a gamer. I loved just playing games and getting together with people, and trying to best your opponent through 40 Necron warriors. I guess it was a really cool. I think depending on the age that you are, it depends on what sort of hobby you're interested in. I think sometimes when you're a bit younger, maybe in your late teens, you're just collecting stuff, aren't you? And you're just buying stuff and just building it and then playing with grey plastic models. And then as you get a bit older, you realise the value of a paint job. Or I'm not saying that's a catch-all for anybody. That was just particular to me, really. But I think as you get older, you realise how valuable your time is, and you think, well, if I'm going to paint 40 Space Marines, I better do a good job of them, because if not, you feel like you're wasting your time. So I think as you get older, your hobby develops and you become a much more well-rounded hobbyist or gamer, I guess, don't you? You have a bit of everything, but I think primarily I'm a gamer. To give you a shorter answer, but in the last couple of years, I'm definitely aspiring to be a painter. I'm definitely trying to work on my airbrush techniques and my brush technique and learning all about colours and bits and bobs. So definitely trying to be a painter, but definitely a gamer.
Yeah, I found that with the age of the internet and YouTube and even some companies' courses now. There's a lot of courses around the UK for airbrushing and painting, and now, as you said, it really is a golden age for learning new stuff because people are not afraid to share techniques and information.
No, well, with the internet, so many people. I think when I was collecting Necrons when I lived in New Zealand, I can't remember the name of the website. Warseer was one of the biggest websites that got people from all over the world on it sharing their stuff, and I love that. But then since we all got smartphones and we all became more familiar with YouTube, there's so much great content out there, and if you want to know a little bit more and you want a bit of one-to-one tuition, there's loads of people out there that'll do it. I did at the time an MKA course with Matt Kane and Henry Steele and Andy Wardle, and then obviously Cult of Paint has risen out from that. But I did a course for there and learned so much in the space of 4 days. It completely changed the way I paint, and now Miles David is giving me some tuition and really pointing me in the right direction of which I want my hobby to go. And as I said earlier, as you get older, you value your time a little bit more, and you appreciate your hobby a bit more, and I'm always trying to improve, and I think that can be said for a lot of people in Heresy in particular. The standard across the board is really, really high, and I think that's because your average age or your average person that's playing it is a little bit older, and like I say, time's more valuable, and you put perhaps a little bit more effort into it, and that can only be a great thing.
Yeah. What game systems do you play? Are you simply a one system person, or have you spread out?
I would love to play multiple systems. I would love to get into Age of Sigmar or Warcry, purely because it's just a bit of a distraction, and I love the model range. But I'm not a very clever person, and my brain can only take so much information. And unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, running the 30k channel consumes a lot of time, effort, and energy, and it doesn't allow me to dip into other games that much. I've dipped into Adeptus Titanicus a little bit, but I don't run those games. Boris and James run those for me because I haven't got the brain power to learn a new rule set. And before lockdown occurred, I was about to launch Aeronautica Imperialis. I've got an amazing setup for that, and some really lovely models all ready to go. But with lockdown, I've been able to get Boris over. It was a project that him and I were going to champion a little bit, but I think I would love to get into other stuff. I just don't have the time. But every time we do something like Adeptus Titanicus or Aeronautica Imperialis, there's a much larger wheel turning that will develop into some really cool stuff for 30k. Because a lot of people say to me, well, why are you doing AT or why are you doing Aeronautica Imperialis? Because it's set in 40k. But these little offshoots are a test bed for something much, much larger, which will come in the future. But I'd rather get it now, get the process locked down now, and my thought process sorted, and then we can then introduce it into 30k. So it might look weird right now, but in the future it will pay dividends. But yeah, I'd love to get into Warcry. I'm thinking about it quite heavily because it's only like 20-25 quid for 6 or 7 models, and I've probably got all the terrain I need to build a Warcry board, and I think that would be really cool. But I'm waiting for Warhammer Old World. That's what I'm waiting for. Maybe next year or the year after, or 3 years down the line. Who knows? But I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, I think our gaming group are really heavily into Aeronautica as well, but I think most of us are praying and hoping for Battlefleet Gothic relaunch.
Yes, well, it's funny you say that, as am I, because I think it will be set in 30k, or I hope it is set in 30k, and then that will allow the holy grail of games, won't it? Because you could do a linked series of games, starting off in space, going down to Titanicus size, doing a flying sortie with Aeronautica Imperialis, but with 30k spec planes or lightnings. Then you can do a 5k mega battle game, or 10k, and then you can go down to 3k, and then you can go to Zone Mortalis, and you can do a skirmish game. So all that is coming for the channel, but it relies on solid rule sets and readily available models, because I can't go out and buy tons of old Battlefleet Gothic for £400 more than it should be. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd just be bled dry and won't be able to pay the rent. So it's all about time, effort and money, isn't it?
Yes.
Always.
What advice would you give someone just starting out in the hobby, or maybe your younger self?
Oh, my younger self. My younger self flitted from stuff to stuff, and I think if you tell a young guy to focus on one thing, they won't do it. So I don't know. I think if you're a young guy, you've just got to explore what you've got to explore. But once you've set your sights on 30k, I think you need to buy a plastic box set, which Games Workshop need to make more readily available. We need more Burning of Prospero and Betrayal of Calf sets, but we need plastic vehicles. Is just the core set. We need Spartans, we need Rhinos, and then we can build Predator chassis, and we need a Sakaran chassis all in plastic. And I think if Games Workshop did that, the uptake of 30k overnight would just go through the roof. And also I think people who are in the hobby, like myself, would just buy a ton more stuff, because plastic is quite easy to work with. It's very crisp and requires less cleanup. And I think if you're a young guy coming in and you buy your first Spartan or Sakaran or something, that's quite a daunting task to unwarp it, sand it flat, fill it, undercoat it. You know, it doesn't undercoat as well as plastic, and I think 30k is very daunting to a new person. But with people, hopefully like myself and other people doing interviews and hobby-related topics on YouTube, you know, the community is steering newcomers through the hobby. Not Games Workshop or Forge World, they don't do a very good job at that at all. It's the community that drives better access to the hobby, is probably the best thing to say. And from a Forge World Games Workshop point of view, that's fantastic for them, because they haven't put any resource in, they haven't put any time, effort or money into it, because the community's doing it for them, which in a way is great, because we do have a strong community. But I think it's pretty appalling on the part of the manufacturer. But I'm not going to bash them too much, because I do love them and I've supported them for years, and I love their hobby and I love the models and everything that comes with it. But we do need more people into the hobby, and to do that we need plastic kits.
Yeah, personally thinking I would sell possibly one of my kidneys for a plastic Fire Raptor and a plastic Storm Eagle kit.
Amen. Amen.
Have you ever had an extended period out of the hobby?
Yeah, I wouldn't say extended. I've always, if I haven't been building models or gaming, I'm always reading articles, or I'm always looking at stuff. But I guess it was when I moved to New Zealand in 2005, and I had a bit of time out because I was just enjoying the outdoor space, and I got into sport quite a lot, and hobby definitely took a back seat. But there was always a monolith, or there was always some Necrons to paint on my desk, and maybe if I only spent maybe a couple of hours every 2 or 3 weeks, the backlog got shifted eventually. But no, I think I've always had it in the background, whether it was a White Dwarf magazine when they were popular, or whether it was a models on the bench. But I've always had something in the background. It's so hard to stay away from, isn't it? You know, it's because there's so many levels to it, and it's really hard to stay away from. But it's always been a constant in my life, I guess.
What's the best part about the hobby for you?
To say everything's a bit cliched, really, isn't it? But I think it really is. There's so many aspects to it. I love just getting a new model, taking it out of the box, clipping it from the frame, or sanding it from the gates, and building it. And then there was obviously the painting of it. You know, how am I going to paint that angle, or how am I going to make that effect, or you know, what am I going to achieve from this new army? You know, do I want to develop this way? Do I want a clean look, or a dirty look, or a gritty look? What do I want? And then once you've gone through that process of buying all the stuff and painting, you've then got the social aspect, where you can go see friends that have a like mind and into the similar sort of movies and music, and it just becomes a really great social thing. And it's just the whole thing is really, really great, really cool. And you know, like you and I, we've both been to Gibraltar to play a few games with Stephen Pardo, and you know, those experiences are fantastic, and I never thought I'd end up in Gibraltar playing a war game. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's just the way the hobby takes us, and it's really cool. I love everything about it.
And on the flip side, what's the worst part about the hobby for you? What things could be improved, for example?
If we look at it from a personal perspective, I think it does rob time from being outdoors. I used to be, up until perhaps a few years ago, a very sport-orientated person, and I loved going out and taking part. And as the channel has become more popular, it's definitely taken me away from that sporting element, which I used to love. I do want to introduce that back very soon. But so it does take time away from outdoor pursuits and other hobbies. I used to be really into rock climbing and reasonable at it, and I haven't rock climbed for nearly a year now, which I regret, because I enjoy that. But It's an indoor game, isn't it? It keeps us indoors, which I think is kind of a bad thing, but not a bad thing because we're not out on the streets drinking and doing silly things. But from a manufacturer's point of view, I think the bad things are updates and FAQs. I think they're quite a bad element to the hobby. And just the lack of support in model range, particularly in the plastics, as I talked about before. I think that's a bad thing for the hobby at the moment. But as I said, I can't condemn them too bad because I love it. I love every aspect of it. But I just think there could be some things improved rather than they're bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
How would you deal with like a lack of hobby mojo or a burnout situation?
Well, unsurprisingly, that happens to me all the time because I work 4 days a week, 40 hours a week, and on the weekends, usually on a Saturday, I spend 10 hours filming a game, and then I usually spend the majority of the Sunday editing that game. And then during the week, I've then got to find time for work, my girlfriend, and building the ton of models I've got and painting everything for the channel, developing new ideas. So sometimes there will be a week where I just physically cannot do any hobby. I cannot do any editing because I'm just burnt out. I'm just so tired. But then I think, well, this game's got to be produced, so I've got to build this board by Friday or Saturday, whenever. You just have to do it. But there are times where I need a week out and to do absolutely nothing and just watch TV or just eat pizza. But that happens quite a lot. So some weeks I'm really productive. Other weeks I'm not so productive, but eventually it gets done. I haven't had a holiday for 2 years, which is pretty tough, I'm not going to lie. So it happens all the time. But I generally get through it by watching movies and eating pizza. That kind of gets me through it all.
Has anyone inspired your hobby, style or life?
Yes. Everybody inspires my hobby and my hobby life. There are so many talented people in the world that do this hobby, and you could be painting a space marine or a rhino or whatever it will be, and you think you have done a really good job of that, and you can go on Instagram or Facebook and you can see 1,000 people that have just done something that you want to achieve. So I'll give you a really good example of that recently. I've just painted my first Death Guard Marine. It's on my desk as we speak, and I'm looking at it right now. And I really struggle to paint Space Marines. I've painted Mechanicum for so long, I don't know how to paint a Space Marine. And I was on Instagram probably 2-3 weeks ago. There's an Australian guy called Dom Santini. His Instagram is @Whisperheads.
Nice.
And his Death Guard are some of the best painted Death Guards in the world, and that's my personal opinion. And he did a really great breakdown of how he did his scheme, and I brought every single paint that he brought and I followed it to the letter, and I got a similar result. I'm not going to say it was better or worse, but I got a similar result, and I am so happy with it. And if it wasn't for him and that breakdown of colour scheme, I would not have this Death Guard model on my desk as we speak. However, I have to credit Miles David as well, because I've taken some tuition from him in the last month, and Miles taught me the fundamentals of painting a Space Marine, which I didn't understand about a month ago. And with those two things combined, I've produced something which I'm immensely proud of. And this goes back to the community. If we didn't have Instagram and Dom didn't post his scheme up and how he painted his models, I would not have this model on my desk. If Miles didn't do what he did, I wouldn't be able to paint a Space Marine. So every day I'm on social media and I see stuff I like and I screenshot it, and I've got thousands and thousands of photos on my phone of stuff I want to emulate or ideas I want to take from and kind of make my own. So we all spur each other on in this hobby, and I take my inspiration from social media every day, from stuff from people all over the world.
Yeah, I think I've screenshotted every single one of your boards you've ever done.
Thank you. Well, there you go. We all influence each other, don't we, to a degree?
Yeah.
So that's great.
What projects are you working on at the moment?
Ooh, I'm working on a lot of secret projects. The first one is I'm in the process. I'm about to start. Well, as soon as they get delivered, 100 tactical marines. That's my first job for the next 3 months. I've got 30 on my desk right now, and I've got another 60 on their way. I know that makes 90. So okay, maybe I've got some more somewhere else. I don't know. I think I've got some Terminators somewhere. But I plan on painting 100 Tectomarines in one big go, and I'm gonna do them all in sub-assemblies, and I'll be able to paint them immensely fast. I think once I get the other, no, it is 60. Yeah, I've got 60 delivered. I've got 60 coming. Once I get the 60 done and they're all cut from the frame and sanded, they will be painted super fast. I'm talking 6 weeks, I reckon. So that's on my desk at the moment. I've got 10 boxes of the new Necromunda big box set or whatever it is. 10 Zone Mortalis.
10 boxes.
10 boxes. Yeah, it cost me over 1,000. I think it cost £1,200 eventually. It was huge sum of money. My girlfriend did hit the roof when she took delivery of these 10 boxes of Necromunda. She was not happy. But I've got those to do, so they're all cut from the frames, and I'm just working out some templates so I can paint them really quickly, so they'll blank certain bits off and I'll just be able to airbrush the things really quickly. So they're my 2 major projects, and then the third project is Aeronautica Imperialis. I've developed a really, really unique way of playing Aeronautica Imperialis. The world has not seen this way to play Aeronautica Imperialis, so I'm really proud of it. And I've had a couple of guys from the community help me out with some 3D printing and some stuff. I don't want to give too much away, but I filmed the first test game about 3 months ago, and I was getting ready to film the first game, I don't know, a month ago with Boris, but lockdown happened and we can't do what we're going to do. So I'm really proud of that, and I think when it comes out, I think it will blow people's minds, because, and I don't mean that in an arrogant way, I just think it's so unique and different. And the Aeronautica system, I'm going to call it a system because I don't want to give it away. The system I've developed is a precursor to something really big, a linked campaign that's coming for 30k once we perfect the Aeronautica thing. So maybe, I was hoping this new series was going to come out in June, but that's not going to happen now, so it's probably going to be September maybe. So lots of stuff, and I've got models all over the world being painted by lots of different people for this big project, so it's quite exciting. But you know, this lockdown has completely screwed me at the moment, so I'm really struggling to pull it all together, but it is coming, I promise.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks for sharing this.
My pleasure. You're the first person I think I've said about it. So.
Oh, exclusive.
That's good.
If your budget was unlimited, but you'd only buy one army, what would it be?
Well, I'll be honest, I've already done it. Solar Auxilia. I've wanted to do Solar Auxilia since they came out, and I have my Solar Auxilia in a box. I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of models, and it was going to be my next army to paint before I got the Death Guard on the go. So for me, it's Solar Auxilia. It's an army I've wanted to do for years. Well, since the range came out, which is probably a year and a half, 2 years. But I changed my mind at the last minute, and there's a really good reason for that, which I can't quite give away just yet. But yeah, it was going to be Solar, and that is the army I want to do. But I want to do a weird, wild army, really weird Solar Auxilia army. So it's coming. It's coming. I reckon my Solar will appear on the channel in March, I think, because there's a wild plan set for the Solar. Because I have this. I can't really say too much, because if I don't do it, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. But there's a second element to the Solar army which I've planned, and I can't give away too much either, because there's a lot of stuff going on in my life at the moment, and I need to wait for those elements in my life to sort themselves out before I can do the second element to the Solar army. So it's something nobody's seen. So I probably won't do if I don't get my ass in gear. So there's just too much on my plate. But if money was unlimited, it would be Solar, and I've already brought the Solar, so it didn't cost me that much either. So it doesn't sound as extravagant as your question posed it to be. But the other secondary answer to that is I would love to do a Titan Maniple with loads of knights, but I've got that now because I've brought Adeptus Titanicus models, and I've got 2 warlords that cost me 85 quid and not £3,000 or £5,000. So I really love playing Adeptus Titanicus with 40k rules. Just change the movement to inches and the weapon ranges to centimeters, and play it like 30k, and it's an amazing game. It's been a Christmas special on the channel for 2 years. I think we did it Christmas this year, Christmas just gone, and the Christmas before, and it translates so well because I've always wanted a Titan mana pool, always, but I could just never afford it. But since Adeptus Titanicus came out, it's fulfilled my dream, and I've kind of got the Titan Legion out of my system, and I've paid 300 quid in models for it, where it would have cost me 10,000. Do you know what I mean? So amazing.
Yeah. What do you hope to improve about your hobbying in the future?
Painting. I'm on a massive mission at the moment to improve my painting. I was super happy with the Thalax army supported by the tanks, which I finished painting probably 3-4 months ago, and I'm now pushing my painting again to paint the Death Guard army. So painting has been a massive ambition of mine, and I'm on a serious mission to sort that out. Yes, it has to be painting. I've kind of got everything done that I need to get done in my hobby wise, like modelling and stuff like that. I'm not very good at modelling, and I don't think I'll ever be, because I don't have the imagination to convert stuff. And if you've heard of Jack Eldridge, the Anvils of Konor guy, his models are just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I know that I will never be able to achieve anything like him. And I think, do you know what? I'm not going to bother. I'm going to let Jack do it, because he just does it so much better than I will ever be able to do it. So I think leave the modelling to guys like Jack, and I will try and pursue painting, because I'm getting reasonable at painting, so I'm going to stick with that.
That's brilliant, David. Thanks. That's the end of part 1.
Oh, cool.
Do you need to take a break at all? Do you want to?
No, I'm good, man. We can carry on if you like.
Yeah, sure. And then we head into part B. What was the catalyst behind starting the 30k channel and then pushing on further towards your own website?
There's lots of factors in this. The first one was I was a big consumer of battle reports on YouTube in general. Tabletop Tactics, Striking Scorpion were the two main ones I watched. I watched a bit of mini wargaming as well, because they do lots of different stuff to the guys in England, so it was good to see what appeals to different people around the world. I noticed that nobody was doing 30k, and I was embarking in 30k, and I thought, well, I'm not represented in the world of battle reports. There was a few 30k ones out there, but they weren't quite at the same level as Tabletop Tactics and Striking Scorpion. And I thought, well, you know, I'm not represented here. And at the time, I was kind of early to mid 30s, and nobody was speaking to me. And I thought, well, I've kind of got an idea in the back of my head about how I want the battle reports to be, and I think some people might be interested in it. So I put some stuff together with the help of my dad and 3 friends from Cambridge, and we filmed the first 2 games, and that had a guy called Lee who had Raven Guard, Rob who had, I think he had Sons of Horus, Rob, and then there was Liam with White Scars. And we produced the first games on the channel, and they were really popular on YouTube, which was fantastic. And so I did a few more, and I realised there was an appetite for it in the way that I filmed the battle reports and the format and the quality of it. And I wanted to do more, and so I got a little unit which I rented, and it was £500 a month, that unit to rent, and that was all coming out of my salary. So I was paying rent, food, all of the sporting activities, models, everything that came out of my monthly thing, plus the rent on this place. It was humongous. And then YouTube offered an opportunity to monetize content, which I know is not popular in the community, but the fact of the matter is if it wasn't for the subscribers for the channel would not exist. It's as simple as that. And I think people forget that because they just expect it to be free. And, you know, content does go out on YouTube. It's the back catalogue that's slowly being released. But if it wasn't for the minority of people that subscribe, the channel would close tomorrow. It's a simple fact, because the cost and the time is absolutely humongous. So anyway, so started monetizing through YouTube, which was really great, and that was helping to pay half the rent. So I got about 250 quid out of it, and for that we were doing, I think it was 1 or 2 games a month. I don't actually remember now. And then I just thought, well, you know, this could be a serious thing. And about that time, I was producing, I think it was a game a week, so 4 games a month. I think I was producing at the time. And YouTube changed its rules, so if you didn't have over 100,000 subscribers, you couldn't monetize your content. And I've only got to date 12,000, I think, or 11,600 or something like that. So I knew for a fact that Wargaming in general, and particularly 30k, because it's a niche within the gaming community. If I did 40k, that's a different matter, but 30k is a niche within a niche within a niche, right? So I knew I was never going to get to 100,000, not in a million years. So I figured, well, if I'm going to continue doing this, and there was an appetite for it, then I've got to build my own website, which cost a huge ton of money, absolutely huge ton of money to build your own website. It cost like $3,000 to build a website. So that came out of my own pocket, and I had to build the website, and then the content went on there, and then the subscriptions changed over, and that's really where the channel then started to have to make money to pay the website ongoing costs, the maintenance of that. And then I knew that to keep those subscribers, they needed content, because content is king. If you've got no content, you've got no subscribers, because people will not support you just because you're David Brains and you've been doing battle reports for 6 months. You know, as soon as that content goes, the viewers go. So I had to keep it up, and then they wanted more, which was fine. And then we produced more battle reports and different content, and that's what drives the channel. It's purely content focused, and that's why I've got these plans and ideas to produce better stuff in the future. The monthly membership will never change. It will always be £4.50. It will never go up to £5 as far as I'm concerned, you know, unless something dramatic happens in the world. So I think what you get for £4.50 a month right now is pretty good. And I know there are other channels that are producing a ton of content, but they're full time and they've got the backing of 40k behind them. I've got 30k behind me, which is 1% of the 40k market. Do you know what I mean? It's fraction compared to 40k. So, you know, everyone assumes I'm doing this full time. I'm absolutely not. I would love to, because that would allow me to paint my 100 tactical marines in probably 2 weeks, and I can get a Death Guard army on the channel within a matter of months. Whereas working 4 days a week, well, it's going to take me 3-4 months to get 100 marines done, and I've got vehicles after that. So I'd love to go full time, but it's subscribers, isn't it? You know, so it's tough, but it's worth it.
Your boards are one of the stunning things on the channel after the armies. How long does it take you to plan out a board, and how long does it take you to set one up?
Thank you. That's really kind. Yeah, the USP of the channel is definitely the boards and the format, I think, of filming the games. The boards are really easy because you've seen them yourself. We use slate, gravel, rocks and stone, and aquarium aggregate, and then we use that mixed in with third-party suppliers and Games Workshop terrain. So what that allows me to do is, not only does it allow the boards to be completely different every single time, and you know, you could have the same 4 rocks and bits of Games Workshop terrain, but you can create undulation in ground, you can create line of sight blocking berms and hills and stuff, and the beauty about using the aggregate and the rocks and the stone is it looks quite natural but also quite dull, and then you've got the vibrance of the models and the if you look at a Sakaran, I mean, that thing is wild looking, isn't it? But it's a stunning model, and Games Workshop terrain tends to be very angular, and it's got lots of skulls on it, and it's got too much detail. So when you put a tank in front of I don't know what the new range of stuff's called, the new buildings, although they are amazing and they are sized much better than the older stuff, it's really hard to tell the difference between the two models. The Sakaran or the tactical marines get lost, and so I use simple stuff to, one, create really cheap but effective boards, but it makes the model stand out, and that's the real key. Because for me, if you spent £3,000 or £2,000, spent 6 months painting it, I want that army to be seen on the channel so people can appreciate the models. They're probably not worried about if I have a Sector Imperialis painted up in blue or green or whatever. They're there for the models, and that's what the focus should be. And I think a lot of channels lose sight of that. The boards are very secondary, and I think for me, I get comments all the time. You got guys that play at their local club and they use lots of different terrain from lots of different places, but it doesn't have any cohesion to it. But also, they don't put a lot of terrain down, or if they do, it's not done in a thought out way. So the armies that we collect tell a story, the lists that we build tell a story, but the battlefields rarely tell a story. And it's really important to the channel that you get all of those three elements in the game, because that makes a more immersive game. There's no point just dropping a big building in the middle of the board and then 2 buildings on one side and 2 buildings on the other, so it looks like a number 5 on a dice, because that's boring. I want the board to tell a story. It's an abandoned city that's been phosphaxed, or it's been orbital bombarded, or there's been a Thunderhawk gunship has crashed, a crew has, it's been sent to excavate the remains from the thing. It needs to tell a story, and then those 2 factions are fighting over that crashed Thunderhawk to get the stuff inside or prevent a side from getting it. They have to tell that complete story, and people are guys that come on the channel, they're not used to these types of boards, so for them it's a really nerve-wracking experience, because they've got to remember their rules and they've got to remember everything, and then they've got to play on a board which they're not used to. So it all creates an interesting atmosphere, and I appreciate you saying the thing about the boards, because it's so important that they make sense and they work with the armies rather than against them.
So on the other part of what makes your battle reports really good, the beautiful armies you've had on the channels and the awesome players that come with them. Have you got a favourite army? I won't ask about favourite player, but favourite army.
No, that's really bad. I can't. Well, first of all, let me address the players, because we are so lucky in this hobby. As I said, the general hobbyist in this is they're of a certain age, they've got some time, and they take a lot of pride in painting and matching their armies to fluffs or rights of war, or they may really make an effort with their armies. And we're so lucky in the fact that we have that. And people recognise the channel as I don't wish to sound as if I'm blowing my own trumpets, but maybe as a mark of quality, or it's an aspirational thing for them to have their army and share their hobby with the world, because we've got people from all over the world watching the games, and I see the channel as an opportunity for someone, as a vehicle to share their hobby, rather than David Brain's the 30k channel. It's not me. I've created the channel as a vehicle to showcase people's hobbies, and that's how I see the channel, rather than me and 3 mates playing a game with each other and then people watching us play games. So the channel is very much, you can play a part on the channel and show the world your hobby. So going back to my favourite armies, I honestly think it's Sons of Horus. I think they are my favourite army when they come on the channel. And then people will say to me, well, why don't you collect a Sons of Horus army? Well, I would love to, but the Death Guard for me is a historical thing for when I was a kid, and I think that's where that comes from. But Sons of Horus for me is good, but mainly because of Horus. Horus is the main protagonist in this whole story that we're playing. He's the reason why we are in the state that we are in and why we play this game. It's that struggle, the favoured son turns from the light of his father and thinks he can do a better job, and brings the truth to the universe, and what an amazing story. And it's really hard to ignore Horus, because he is at the absolute centre of this struggle and the reason why we play this game. So, and I think as well that the model range for Sons of Horus is amazing. The Justarian Terminators are some of the best Terminators in the game. Other than Death Shroud and Grave Wardens, I think they're the second best. But I think and I think we can all see this without going too deep into this, Matt. I think we can all see a bit of Horus in all of us. If you're a bloke and you've got a father, and my father's dead now. He helped me build various aspects for the channel. But I've had a real struggle with my father over the last 40 years, and I think we can all see a bit of Horus in ourselves, and the struggle we have with our fathers. And I think, again, not trying to be too deep, but I think we can all see something in that storyline. And we've all got brothers and sisters, maybe, so some of us haven't, perhaps, but we can see the struggle and the competitiveness between siblings and the father being at the head of the family, I guess. But I don't know. That's tough. That's a deep question.
Yeah, that went very deep there.
Yeah. But yeah, Sons of Horus for me is probably the one I love seeing most on the channel, because they've got some really cool rules. The Long March is just an amazing rite of war. It's phenomenal, and can be used to great effect. And I think the colour scheme, in particular green, it's a bit different. It's it's cool. Sons of Horus. That's where I'm going with that. Short answer.
Final answer.
Final answer. I promise. I don't need to phone a friend.
Okay. One of the throwaway comments about 30k before was it was just Marines versus Marines. So boring, who wants to play that? But seeing more and more armies such as Cult, Solar Auxiliary and Demons of the Ruinstorm now popping up, is that thought still valid, or was it ever valid based on the flavour of each legion?
I think when it came out, that was definitely my attitude. I was like, oh god, it's just Space Marines on Space Marines, how boring. And then and that's why I went with Mechanicum, because it was something completely different, and I couldn't paint Space Marines, so that's the other thing as well. But I think when I first started, I was a bit naive. I had no idea what the Horus Heresy was. I had no idea there was a struggle between Horus and his brothers and his father. I had no idea, and I didn't know anything about the battles, and had no clue. I just saw robots and went, yeah, I'll go for that, because I can't be bothered playing Marines against Marines. However, after reading, the Black Books 1 and 2, we've got Rite of Wars, and we've got all these new units. And if someone says now it's boring, it's Marines and Marines, that is so far from the truth, because the Marine legions are so diverse. And with Rites of War, with the new consoles and the new characters that come out in each book, the Marine chapters, I know they're just Space Marines and Terminators, but they are so flavoursome, and no Space Marine list is the same. And I think the nuances of the legions is just amazing. The wide ranging possibilities you can build. It's definitely not Marine on Marine as I initially thought. But you are right though. Forge World have kind of spiced it up a little. We've got Talons, we've got Sisters of Silence, haven't we? We've got Custodes rather, Solar Auxiliary, and there's loads of stuff. The Cults and Militia, they're such a wild list. And the model range and the rule set has just grown and grown and grown, and it's fantastic. It's such an opportunity for people to pick a legion or pick something different, Mechanicum, Solar Auxiliary, whatever, and then run with it, because there's so much diverse rules and model range available. It's unreal.
Have you got a favourite unit in the game?
Yes, has to be Castellax. One, because of the model. I think it's one of the best models they've produced, but I'm biased because I'm a Mechanicum player. But I do love the Mechanicum range. I think it's wild and beautiful at the same time, and I'm really excited to see what Dark Mechanicum brings. If Scoria is anything to go by, it's going to be wild and bonkers and absolutely amazing. Castellax for me, or a Thanatara, the best Mechanicum models available. But I think if we look to Space Marines, or the Legions rather, that's really tough. I think it's probably the Sakaran. I think I mentioned that earlier. I think it's an amazing looking tank. I'm going to go with the Sakaran chassis, whether it's a Venator or a Arcus or whatever it is. I think it's a beautiful model.
Have you got a unit in the game which you wish could have a little rules pump to make them a little bit more usable or competitive as such?
Yeah, I've done a series recently. Whilst the lockdown has been in place, I've done a spin-off series called the Corona Chronicles, and it's three episodes a week. It's not this week because I've done an army focus on my Mechanicum this week, but it's board building. It's I'm trying to remember my own feature now. Unbelievable. It's called Setting the Scene, which is ball building, Firefight, which is just dice rolling, and then the third series is Back to Scotland. That's where we just discuss some rules, nuances, and various bits and bobs. But the first couple of episodes I devoted to TAC Marines, and when we all got into Heresy, it was all about TAC Marines, mainly because Betrayal of Calth and Burning of Prospero was available, and people just bought tons of plastic Space Marines and built up tons of TAC Marines, which is amazing, right? Since then, the game has changed to elite infantry, seekers, and vets. Before they had their change, sniper vets were a thing, and Terminator units and specialist units. So for me, I think tactical Marines have been forgotten, and they've got a rule which I'm sure everyone knows in Heresy called Fury of the Legion, and I personally believe Fury of the Legion needs to have the rending special rule applied to it. Maybe a full 20-man tac squad can shoot 80 shots, 80 bolter shots. So I think maybe that is that right? Yeah, 20 times 30, yeah, 40. So 80 shots they can shoot, and I think maybe that depending on like in 40k 8th edition right now, you've got a sliding scale. So
Yeah.
if you've got X amount of wound, you can move or you can attack or strength, whatever. It degrades, isn't it? So I think maybe that if you've got 50 rounds of one type of weapon firing, they should have an extra rule. So if you're shooting 60 plus bolter shots, it should gain the rending special rule. If you lose models out of the unit and then it goes down to 30 bolter shots you can produce, maybe it causes pinning or something. Do you know what I mean? So I think to have a mechanic like that for Fury of the Legion and other weapons in the game would be absolutely amazing, and I think you would see a resurgence of TAC Marines. But then, to counter my own wish, the models need to be available. So we need more Betrayal of Calth, and we need more Burning of Prospero, or we need a new box set with Jump Assault Marines and a Deimos pattern Rhino in. So, and I genuinely believe if Games Workshop Forge World produced those sets, they would tweak their rule set similar to what I've just mentioned, so they would sell more models. And do you know what? I would buy a ton more TAC Marines, and we would see more Tactical Marines in lists as soon as that box set drops and they get a rules tweak. Absolutely.
As soon as Adeptus Titanicus was announced, you said straight away that it'd be on your channel. Have you enjoyed the content, as it's on a different scale to 30k?
Yeah. Adeptus Titanicus is tricky for me. I personally don't enjoy the game because it's too much management and counters, which for me I don't find very exciting. However, I knew that the channel could do Adeptus Titanicus justice because the boards would build, and I've got a really great guy, Dan Wheeler, who paints the Mortis Force for the channel. He's done such an amazing job with that, and again, the format and the way I film the games appeals to a certain person, and I knew I wanted to do Adeptus Titanicus because, as I mentioned earlier, doing AT now will feed into stuff which the channel has later. So I wanted to learn the rule set and to produce the games and see any sticking points, because to film Adeptus Titanicus is a really, really hard game to film because of that management of the consoles and the counters. It's been a real challenge, and Boris, who does AT for the channel, he's produced digital versions of those, and when something happens with the plasma venting or servitor clades or weapons disarmed or disabled, whatever, we have a digital version which flashes up onto the screen, and then you can see the physical plasma count moving or the damage moving on the track. But the problem with doing that is it takes Boris nearly 2 hours to make a console work for a Titan. So we don't do it for every single Titan, but we do it for some. And nobody in the world has done that, because what happens usually is on other channels, the camera pans over to the thing, you got a finger in the screen, and then the finger moves the plasma over, or it turns the card or whatever. And on the channel, I don't want hands or fingers in the way. I want it to be quite seamless. So that's why we've had to develop that. So to produce a game of Adeptus Titanicus is much harder than filming a 3 or 5K game of 30K. On a personal level, I love the models. I think the models are absolutely phenomenal. And the fact that Games Workshop have fitted magnet holes into those models and the terrain they've made available to it is unbelievable. It's just that I find the game a little bit boring, and I know Adeptus Titanicus players will hate me for saying that, because I know the AT community is huge, and I would hate to discourage someone from playing AT, but it just, for me personally, it doesn't appeal. But I think the guys that are doing AT on the channel are doing a fantastic job of it, and that's why I've stayed away from it. I've kind of given them my vision about what I want to achieve, and they've ran with it, and they've done an amazing job. So, but like I said to you earlier, playing Adeptus Titanicus scale with 30k rules, I'm all over that. I absolutely love that, because for me it's a fast game. I haven't got the patience for terminals. That's my personal opinion. I hope that doesn't taint anyone's opinion of AT, because it is a phenomenal game. It's just not a game for me. That's all it is.
Yeah, I've seen your video about Adeptus Titanicus. Oh, say that again.
AT.
Yeah. I've seen your video about AT terrain, and I'll put a link in the description below, where you turn around and go through the 4-draw boards and discuss the pros and cons, which is a good balance for you, because you could just turn around and say, oh yeah, they're brilliant, but they do have some setbacks, which is
they do, and it's really disappointing rather. However, it didn't stop me from buying them, because I think in general it is a phenomenal product. I love it. There's just a few things which I wish just could be improved, but also as well, I don't just want to be a guy that walks really close behind Games Workshop or Forge World, because what they do is phenomenal, but some of it isn't as phenomenal. Do you know what I mean? So I think I'm quite an honest person. If I just sat there saying, "Oh, everything's amazing," I think that would my integrity's at stake here, because it's my face on camera. I'm not a, it's not. I haven't got a picture of something else. It's my face, and I put myself to it. So, and if I wasn't doing the channel, I would still be doing the hobby, and I would still be buying the products, and I would still post, oh, these boards look great. However, there's still a few problems here, and I think you need to present a balanced view. You can't be pro everything, particularly when it's not positive. Do you know what I mean? So you just need to be honest and true to yourself, I think.
Do you think that producing content on a regular basis to a schedule, through having to feed your subscribers, would it affect the enjoyment of your hobby?
That's a really, really interesting question. It doesn't affect my hobby in a negative way at all, because I love sharing my hobby, and I love sharing other people's hobby. So it's a twofold thing, really. I'm not going to lie, the schedule is absolutely punishing, and I would love to do this full time. And if I could do it full time, then you could have so much more content, and sometimes the content's a little bit rushed, and I'm gonna criticize myself for that. I get rules wrong every so often, and sometimes, after working all week, you've then got to spend 10 hours filming a game, and perhaps we're tired, and it doesn't always go as perfectly smooth as it should do. However, we do a reasonable job, and the guests that come on do a great job. But I just think there's so much more I could do if I could devote more time to it. But if we look at that, if we put that to one side, does it affect my hobby? Yeah, it does affect my hobby, because I have to find time for my own hobby. And like I said earlier, I could paint these 100 tactical marines in a matter of weeks rather than months. But and there are armies that I would love to buy and paint and do as side projects that I just can't do because I'm doing so much for the channel. So it does affect my hobby, but I don't look at it in a negative way, because I think what I am doing is all for the hobby, is all for the channel, and I enjoy doing it. I think the moment it becomes really stressful, or it affects the way I operate, with my girlfriend or with my general outlook on life is when I need to kind of say, right, that's enough, I'm just going to sell it all, I'm going to do something else. But it hasn't got to that point. It's got close, I'm not going to lie. It's been really tough, particularly this last year has been probably the hardest year of the channel. But it's because I'm trying to develop new shows, and I'm trying to put stuff out. So, you know, at the moment it's a game every Friday without fail, but I want to produce so much more, and I'm only one person. So, and the channel doesn't make enough money to pay someone. It doesn't make enough money to pay myself a full-time salary to do it full-time, and it doesn't pay enough to get someone on part-time to help with the load. So I'm kind of at a catch-22 at the moment. I need a little bit more of a nudge subscription-wise to put me in that position, whereas it's not quite there at the moment. And that's not me going, oh, please help me with more subscriptions, because I can continue doing what I'm doing right now to the same level, but I just can't advance it that extra bit. You know, if you look at other channels, mainly Tabletop Tactics, they do a phenomenal job. Lawrence and his team are full-time now, and if you look at the content and the quality that they're putting out, it is phenomenal. And you know, I subscribe to Lawrence's website. I subscribe to Tabletop Tactics because I like to keep an eye on the competition, but also I love what they're doing right now, and I know the channel could produce the same volume and the same additional content and all the graphics and everything that Lawrence is doing. I know the channel can do that, but it can't do it right now because I'm one person producing a battle report a week. You know, so I have to balance it. I know that's a really long answer to your question, but I think it's a well-rounded answer. I'm sorry for the rambling.
No, that's brilliant. Don't worry.
Cool.
So someone sat there listening to this with a beautiful 30k army, but unsure how to get onto the channel. What's the process of meeting
all you got to do is ping me an email, david@the30kchannel.com. Contact me via Instagram, Facebook, however way you want to react. I can take a message, and all I need is a list and some photo of some models. Standards do need to be high, and I know that sounds really awful, but if the channel was producing 10 games a week, then we need volume. But the channel is all about quality. We need a well-rounded, thought-out list along with well-painted models, because I know if we have, and I can show you that I can prove this from viewing figures, if we have average-looking armies and really awful lists, they don't get watched. And then if they don't get watched, people aren't talking about the games, and then people go, oh, the channel had a really awful result today, or the guy's army was awful. We're lucky we haven't had any awful armies on, we're lucky, but we have had armies that are painted to a very superior standard get more views, and armies that are painted to a good standard don't get as many views. That's just fact. That's not me being critical, that's not me being mean or nasty, that's just the world and the way it works. So the better the army and the better the well-rounded list, the more viewers we'll get, which means people will then subscribe, which will then keep me in this business, because if they don't, then the channel disappears. So there is a minimum standard which we need, and the best advice to do that is if you look at my army, I think my army is the minimum standard, because I consider myself to be an average painter, and if you match my standard, then that's the army we want on the channel. So I think that's a good guide. But all I need is a list and some photos and availability. I film Saturday, Sundays when we're not in lockdown, and we can get you on. But for me, we do go through a process. So, you know, we'll have a chat. Nice army, great. Give me a list, fantastic, and I will pair you with, I don't know, if you've got a Death Guard army, you want to play Blood Angels, I'll try and source a Blood Angel army, and then we'll put the two of you together in a chat. This will be probably 2-3 months prior to the actual day. That we'll submit lists, both players see lists, and then we will change those lists as we see fit. One guy might bring 3 Leviathans, and then the other guy might not have any heavy support in his army, so can't take out 3 Leviathans. So we'll make sure the lists are well-rounded and that both players are happy with each list. And then I'll ask what battlefield you want to play on, and I'll try and build you a board as best to my ability to match that. And then we'll meet up on the day and we'll get it filmed, you know. So it's a long process. We don't just, oh, who wants a game? Great, you'll do. we'll get you on a Saturday and just play a game. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot goes on behind the scenes. I think sometimes people fail to see that when the game goes a particular way, or it's a wipeout, or it's 10 victory points to nil, and people think, we just throw people together, but we really, really don't. We have had some bad lists on the channel, but no, sorry, I'm going to retract that. They're not bad lists. They're just badly matched. But sometimes we can get the most perfectly matched lists, but dice go a particular way and the game bombs. We can't do anything about that. But it's just the way it goes. Do you know what I mean? But sorry, I'm rambling again.
It's perfect, because I was just about to ask the next question of the form was how do you match the players to the lists and the games? So you just answered that perfectly,
Brilliant. So there's a lot of discussion, and sometimes we've had a guy come on with a 3K list and he's had X, Y and Z, and we've asked him to completely change his list, entirely change it. And do you know what? People who come on the channel understand what the channel's trying to achieve by producing entertainment. And when the guys come on for the day, I say to them, look, you're not at your local club, you're not at a competitive tournament, we are here to produce an entertaining game. And that's what we need to achieve, because if the game bombs by 20 minutes in, you can see the way the game's gone. People switch off, and then they go, well, there's a really bad game on the channel today, oh yeah, I don't like it, I'm going to unsubscribe, and then it goes back to my original conversation. If we've got no subscribers, we've got no channel. So all the effort is put into producing an entertaining game, and that's ultimately what we're producing, is entertainment.
So where can people find you on the internet?
There's 4 major places. The first one is the website, www.the30kchannel.com. There's a trailer which you can go and watch that shows loads of games from actually 2019. I need to update the trailer, it's a bit out of date now, but trailer from 2019, and then you can hit the subscribe button, £4.50 a month, and that will get you access to all of the games on the channel, every single game in the back catalogue, plus the games we're producing at the moment. Well, we're producing a series at the moment, but there is so much content on the website that is not on YouTube. But that's because there has to be a value for the subscriber. They have to have access to everything because they're paying for it. If you're on YouTube, I'm currently uploading the back catalogue, so 2019 back catalogue, and I think in 2019 we produced a game, 4 or 5 or up to 7 games a month for the entirety of 2019. So there's so much content for 2019 to be released. So I think we're at March at the moment. We're on YouTube, so YouTube of course. Instagram has been the massive driver for the hobby. It's where everyone is, so it's just at 30k channel, and then Facebook is just the 30k channel, and it's all one word. A lot of people spell it the space 30k space channel. It's all one word, so if you are searching, if you spell it in all words, you'll find it a lot easier. But they're the main places. But I would accept messages or emails from anything and anyone, so get your inquiries in if you want to come on the channel. We'd love to host you.
That's perfect. So final question, in a sort of light-hearted way to end the interview, is
Go on.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Absolutely it does. I love ham and pineapple. It's amazing.
Perfect. Okay, thanks so much for this interview, David. It's been amazing.
Matt, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
A massive thanks to David for taking part in this interview, and a massive thanks to you for listening and enjoying the slideshow, I hope. We have got more interviews with more prominent members of the community in the playlist, which you can find on the end screen coming up soon. Same again, normal shenanigans at the end. Like, comment, sub if you've enjoyed this. Thanks so much and take care.